I appreciate you taking the time to chat because I know obviously you're down in Sydney, the premiere tonight. I actually spoke to Sean this
Oh yeah,
afternoon
yeah.
already as well,
Oh,
so I know.
sweet. How'd you go with that?
Good man. I love his films. I did show him actually. Funnily enough, like I'm in the middle of moving house at the moment, so I'm kind
Ah,
of like
cool.
packing
Yeah,
some
yeah,
shit
yeah.
up. But like I managed to keep The Loved Ones and Devil's Candy out,
Ah,
and I was like,
epic.
he's a great filmmaker, and it's a great film, man. Dangerous Animals is so much fun.
Well, what a guy, right? Like he kind
Mm.
of, he rolls in and he delivers some ripper films
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the ones and the Devil's Candy. But he takes his time and he picks his projects. And I think,
100%.
for him to do this project first time where he's not the writer as well,
Yes.
for me that said a lot because I was like, this guy is very particular about what he chooses to do, and he's decided to take this on for a reason. So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, no, it's very cool. I'm glad you got to have some time and talk to the man, the legend himself, Sean Byrne.
The man, the myth, the legend. And
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
funnily enough, for a guy who makes like you watch Loved Ones, you watch Devil's Candy, and like Dangerous Animals is definitely his most fun movie as well. Like it's a fun
Oh,
horror.
100%. Yeah,
He's just a
yeah.
guy. He's just like you and me, just having a chat. And I'm like, you come up with some sick shit, man.
Oh,
Like,
mate, I honestly, I've been there, mate. I have
yeah,
100% been there where I was like, I watched The Loved Ones and then I watched Devil's Candy and I had my first meeting with Sean Byrne on the Gold Coast. I'm like, you are the loveliest, nicest bloke, but you have got some demons or something running around up there. I
something
don't know
sick
how
and
you're coming
twisted.
up with this because those serial killers, especially the loved ones, man, I still remember that dinner scene and just,
Dude, I know.
um, but he always had like I found he had that kind of theme where he'd blend like music into his performance in a really interesting way. And
Totally, yeah, yeah.
yeah, I don't know, like there was like a fun element to it, but I definitely agree. I feel like Nick Leopard with this film, he really wanted to blend in as much comedy as he could. I
Mm.
found that the vernacular for Queenslanders and understanding that was really impressive for a guy that, has I don't think he's ever been to the Gold Coast. So
Far out.
it was pretty impressive. Yeah, I
He
thought.
got it well. He got it well. Well, and it's funny you say that because like horror can like outside of just what this film is sort of like it capturing that cultural element of Queensland. Horror
Mm,
is a genre that can be stereotyped so hard. Like you can just fall into so many tropes and so many traps, not just thematically but with characters as well. And I'm curious to
100%.
know for yourself and for your character, where was that balance for you in finding a character that does sort of come into the trope, like has to balance being a trope horror character, but then putting your unique spin on it and start making it kind of feel like something we haven't seen before.
I feel like Sean was a great person to talk to about this because, when you get your sides as an actor, you kind of, you roll in and you do a version that you think is the version that you want to do. And then I remember going and talking to Sean and he was saying to me that, he wanted to try and, ground this guy and make him as real as possible. So I was on for
Mm.
that journey. Obviously, you do have those tropes that exist. In the back of my mind, I'm like, this is the first kill of the movie. There were ways that I wanted to set it up, and I think Ella and I spoke about it as well. We wanted our relationship to be set up so you thought that it was something that could potentially, take the audience almost like the start of a tragedy where
Sure.
we could be the setup where it might be set up like a bit of a rom-com where we're the leads and we're about to go on this great trip.
It's your
So
story. It's your guys' story at
yeah,
that point. Yeah.
exactly. And we tried to take it from that angle so that, we weren't kind of falling into that trope around it. But for me, with all the characters I play, I just try and find an element of myself in them. I really like playing those stereotypically masculine characters. I like playing the characters that are, not necessarily liked. Just by their perception of how they present, but then
Sure.
trying to
Yeah. Yeah.
find a likable quality and try and bring that. And
That,
I
yeah.
think Heather's character really did that because I was like, the more that I can show, like, obviously, like we've met and we've been, at the backpackers and we had a great time the night
The
before.
Gold Coast holiday experience. Yeah.
Exactly. But at the same time, I'm like, it's one of those things where it's like I've been on this holiday and I don't want it to end. And I've met this amazing girl on the last day of my trip, effectively.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just don't want that to end either. So I just want to live in this moment. So I think all of that together really helped me to try and find, I guess, a real element to the character, put myself in the position where, I could find a likable quality, hopefully, and
Mm.
then through that and Sean's kind of guidance around it all, hopefully not fall into the tropes that you mentioned.
Well, and like I said, it balances it well. Was being Canadian part of that element of finding the niceties in him.
Oh, mate, honestly, it's so funny you bring that up because there's a bit of backstory with that where
Yeah,
when I
yeah.
got tape, right, I got the tape and it was like, we need you to turn this around like 12 hours, but it's very specific. Can you do a Canadian accent? If you can't, like,
Don't
we're not
bother.
gonna,
Yeah.
do it. And then one of my best mates is Canadian. I was with him at the time and I was like, bro, I can't do a Canadian accent, but can you get one of your mates, because he's been living in Oz for a while, can you get one of your mates in Vancouver to just read my lines?
Yeah.
So one of his buddies, this is my mate Carl, he got his buddy Jeff to like read these lines. And, Jeff's just like chilling at home, I think like probably about to watch the hockey or something. And he's there and he's like, Jeff Finley reading for Greg. Like, and he's just recorded these lines to me. And then I kind of like listened to him a little bit, turned around the tape. And then I remember the dialect lady was like, oh, um, like, oh, the accent like seems good, lady. What have you been doing? And I was like, I literally just got one of my mates to read the lines. But
Wow.
also, I think because, I had a close mate who was Canadian, I cared about not depicting it like Letterkenny or Trailer,
Dude, yeah.
Trailer
I
Trash
love
Boys, you
Letterkenny,
know what
man,
I
but I
mean? But I
totally get what you're
love those
saying. Yeah.
shows. But I
Yeah.
was like, I hate it when people do that with Aussies and they're there and they're like, oh, good day, mate.
Yeah.
Like,
Shrimp
I
on the
didn't
barbie
want to
sort of
do
stuff.
the
Yeah.
equivalent stuff of being like,
Yeah.
hey, wait, like with the Canadians. So I really tried to work hard on understanding Canada through my mate and then through his connects and trying to really understand it at its core, like what it feels like to be mistaken as an American.
Totally.
Um, because we have the same thing. I'm sure you've experienced that where some people, when you go to the States, they'll be like, "Oh, are you from New Zealand?" You're like, "It's so different.
It's so
Like,
different.
so different." You know what I mean? But for them, they're like, "It's so similar." So yeah,
I loved it, and I think it brings this level of authenticity to the character too, because like you mentioned, it's the first kill, and it's one of those things in horror films where you go, I can't wait to see the first kill, and when you got two characters, you're like, I don't want them to die though. It's kind of crazy, right?
yeah.
Like you bring that sort of that natural charisma to it, which I think helps a
Oh,
lot.
thanks heaps. And I think, it's one of those things, mate, because you can look at it from two angles. You can go, I can make this character so the audience is rooting for this guy to get
Yeah,
killed. You know what I mean?
yeah,
But
yeah,
or I can make this character somewhat likable. And it's like, what's more interesting? And I felt like for the script, I felt like it was more interesting in the trope and
mm,
in the shell of that masculinity and that kind of like stereotypical North American vibe. That, if he was likable and he was nice, that that'd be something that would potentially connect the audience. So when that moment
yeah.
hits, it hits a bit harder. That was the hope anyway.
It comes across, man. As a guy who watches a shitload of horror, it comes across. I
Yeah.
saw it with I don't know if you remember the other day you spoke with a guy called Peter Gray. It was me and him
Oh yeah, I
sitting next
remember
to each other.
Peter. He's an absolute legend.
He's
Yeah.
awesome. So we're good mates, and we sat next to each other at the screening. And when it
Yeah,
happens,
yeah.
both of us was just like, "Oh fuck!" Like we both had this visceral reaction. So,
Oh,
and while we're speaking about what I'm bringing up, viscerality,
yeah, yeah.
I can't not bring up Jai Courtney. Man, he is
Oh,
so
100%.
unhinged in this film, and I'm curious to know what that sort of energy when you're acting opposite sort of brings to your character. Eh? We were talking about sort of bring that authenticity to who he is as a person. But when you are acting across that sort of unhinged energy and you're supposed to feel in danger in that situation, what does that do for you as a performer?
Oh, I think for me, mate, and like I think the thing that Jai really brought to the character, which you can see when you watch it, is this unpredictable nature about him. So
Yeah.
when you're there and you're acting opposite him, it helps you as an actor to stay present because
Sure.
he is at any point he's shifting and using different tactics. I think from a authenticity standpoint, like Jai is one of the best blokes you'll ever meet, like the type of bloke you want to have a beer with, and I think
Yeah.
Tucker is that too, and he really found himself in it. Obviously he added some texture and some layers there, but I think for me as an actor, like especially from Australia, I look at someone like Jack Courtney when I started my career, and to work with him was
Yeah.
an unbelievable opportunity. And I think that we all kind of were in awe of the way that he worked and just like his energy that he brought on set. But then yeah, when he flipped into the character. You did have moments where you were like, this guy's a scary dude. Like, I'm glad that he's on the good side, man. Because yeah, he's a scary man.
That's unreal. When you do get to, like you said, he's someone you looked up to, and you get to then be performing across from in a film with him. Are you conscious and present of those sort of lessons that you're going to take away from him? Like you said, he's kind and he's calculated in that sense. Is that something that you, as someone who's breaking into the industry, is looking to take for yourself as
100%,
well?
mate.
Yeah,
Like I think part of the best, well, one of the best parts of the job is when you obviously you're an island for ages and you're auditioning, and then you get on
yeah,
set. And then when you're on set, you're looking for people that are like a beacon of light of what you want to do and how you want to operate.
yeah,
And that doesn't always happen. And then you meet someone like Jai and you go, he's a really successful guy out of Australia. And he's got that, he's still just your Aussie bloke. Nice to everyone on set, gives everyone the time of day. But then when it comes time to do the work,
mm,
he's there and he just flicks it and he's on.
yeah,
I love that about him, and I love the way that he's very direct and he's very clear about what he wants, and he's not afraid to kind of speak about what he thinks is good or what he thinks can make the scene better.
yeah,
And as a young actor coming through, sometimes when you're on set, you don't want to step on any toes, but you have these creative ideas that come to you. And I think watching Jai work, it just makes me want to be, kind of more vocal around what I'm doing on set and what my
yeah,
ideas are, because he just kind of gives you that space. And I think, if, in the future I was ever in a position like him, I think I'd definitely be trying to emulate him in terms of doing that, because as a young actor, you're kind of on set with him and you're like, he's set that tone, which
mm,
then allows us to kind of like be. And
yeah,
that's a beautiful thing. So yeah, every day was great, man. Like I think it was very intense
yeah,
for
yeah,
Guy, and very intense
for sure.
days. But like in terms of being on set with him, learned so much and just an absolute blessing.
That's unreal, man. And I think as audiences, we see that on the screen when not just the film in its totality, but especially this opening 15 minutes of the movie. You
Yeah.
can tell, man, when it's like when something's not working or if people characters if someone's leading like that and you're all collaborating in that way, because it is a collaboration at the end of the day. If everyone's not bringing their A game, you can tell. And as audiences, man, we can tell. Like that's the importance of it, right?
100%. I think someone like Jai, I always bring things back to sport because I had a sporting
Yeah.
background. And, someone like Jai, he plays eyes up footy. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Dude, I love
So
that phrase. Yeah. Yeah.
and I feel like Ella as well, like she plays
Ella's
eyes up pretty,
incredible.
like yeah, it's out of this world. So when I was in the scenes with them, and Rob Carlton as well with his little cameo too, you kind of like have these plans, you have these ideas, but they just give you I think the journey that I went on throughout working with them was like I can have more confidence to play eyes up footy because
Yeah.
I feel like the people around me are there, so that if I'm going to throw that flick pass, they're ready for it.
Someone's ready to catch it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, that's definitely an element of it as well that he brings. And, it just makes it so much funner when you're
Yeah.
doing that, because it is real then, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Like you've done the work, you get there, and then it's just about trying to be present, and
Mm,
you're constantly trying to chase that flow state, you know what I mean? That you do get in things like sport or,
yeah.
in life where you feel really connected and present.
Oh, I love that. And it's very rare that in this profession I get to hear analogies of film and sport too. I live for that shit, man. I love it so
Oh
much.
yeah, well, what sport? What's
I'm a league fan. I saw on your Instagram
oh,
you had the
yeah,
Finns jersey on the other
mate, fins up,
Finns.
fins up.
I'm a diehard and sad Broncos fan at the moment, mate. So
Oh mate,
it's
well, I won't hold it against you, mate. I
no,
feel like
hey.
you guys will come back. I reckon I'm confident that the Bronx are going to get a win this weekend for Adam Reynolds 300th. I have no
Adam
doubt about
Reynolds 300 and not to badmouth the Gold Coast talking about dangerous animals, but we are versing the Titans. So.
it. Well, mate, and the Titans are one of the most disappointing teams. They upset me every year because they've got such a great roster, such a great
They've
coach, but they just
always
can't
had
put
an
it together.
incredible roster, eh?
Like
And then
they're like
just
their roster is ridiculous. Their forward pack ridiculous. But yeah, mate, I'm a Union boy. Like, but
yeah,
I
yeah.
I play a lot of Union, but I've recently converted to the league. Just it's just a fun game to watch, mate.
It's a
I
fun
just
game to watch. Me and you are the same. I played Union in high school
yeah,
and
yeah.
was diehard during high school, but then like it's just the state of rugby union at the moment. It's just like it's
Hey,
hard to be a fan. It's
isn't
hard.
that just a topic of conversation you could talk about for hours? The
Oh
state of
man,
rugby union. Since 2003, man. If it was a graph, it's just like
it's
whereas NRL is just
tragically
like
declined. Yeah,
yeah.
the more
Anyway.
marketable game they say, but I'm sure the people at Kismet will love to hear that. About rugby league.
Well, we are talking about the Dolphins, you know what I
That is
mean?
true.
And
The
it's
Finns. We're talking about
another
the Gold Coast, so
another potentially misunderstood dangerous animal.
The sequel, who knows?
Who knows?
The
Yeah.
killer dolphins. You brought up in that last answer about being on set and the immersion of being on set. I'm curious to know how much of this was filmed on location. Were you guys on that boat out in the water for that entire show? That's incredible. What does that do for the performance as well? The immersion of something like that.
Honestly, mate, like straight up, I was so seasick.
Oh,
And I think all of us shared that because, like I've been out boating a fair bit. My dad's a boatie, and like the spot we were at was Jumping Pin, which I don't know if you're familiar with
no,
it, but
I'm aware of where it is. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, good fishing location lead
Yep.
up, a little bit of way out. And but when you're kind of locked in a boat in the cast room and you kind of have, no windows or anything and you're swaying in a boat, you were seasick. So we were kind of like you had the sea legs, but it relaxed you in a way.
Sure.
And it was the weirdest thing, mate. Like you had a boat, this massive boat in the middle of bloody nowhere, and then you had this floating marquee which was like any other kind of like marquee for cast and crew that you'd have on a set. And it's floating and it's right next to the boat. And they've got all the cameras and stuff set up. It was an outrageous, like if you did a behind the scenes of it, you just would have been gobsmacked. So yeah,
Wow.
all of our scenes that I was in were
Mm,
all on location, all out on the boat. So you're dealing with the elements, but
yeah.
it's like what a luxury. The more
Mm,
real the actual environment is, the easier our job is. And I think it couldn't have been shot any other way. And the fact that, the team was able to pull that together, there should be a separate credit for that alone. Like the
yeah.
workplace health and safety guy, like I felt for him, eh? I was like, this is an absolute challenge. Even he had a great sense of humor, but he was so
Good,
good.
good.
But he was like, I'm going to keep you guys safe. But he's like, as far as safety goes, this is like full. Yeah. So we'd have meetings and stuff about it. And you'd occasionally forget to do something. You'd be like, oh, that's right. We're
Yeah.
on the, but,
Putting the
but yeah,
dangerous and dangerous animals. Yeah.
but it helped, mate.
Yeah,
All of it
yeah.
helped. Yeah.
That's incredible, man. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm a huge horror fan. I'm curious.
Yeah.
Firstly, are you is horror a genre you love? Or is that something that you've kind of stayed away from?
Oh, mate, I think everyone goes through like, different phases with what they watch.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't really limit myself in terms of genres, like
sure.
in terms of what I watch. I just try and watch things that, I don't know, that I'm drawn to. And, I've seen films like Hereditary and Midsummer, and I kind of like that kind of, horror, I guess you
Yeah,
could call
yeah. Those
it.
psychological thrillers and
Yeah, there's
stuff. Yeah,
those.
yeah,
Yeah, so I kind of like I have a connection to the films. In terms of Jaws, like who
yeah.
hasn't seen that? Love a creature feature. I feel like I try to be guided by what I'm working on
Okay.
or like what kind of roles I'm auditioning for. So
Mhm.
when I had the opportunity, probably before I did this role, I hadn't watched a lot of horror
Yeah.
as much as I say watch, like dramas and stuff like that. But in saying that, through the process of doing this, I feel like I've found like almost like my 15, 16-year-old self again, going down to the Cineplex at South Bank in school
Oh,
holidays,
dude.
just figuring out what's on,
I used
what's
to
up the
work
street.
there, man. Oh my
Oh,
God.
bro,
Yeah.
we probably cross paths, man.
We
Yeah.
probably
Yeah,
oh,
yeah. Always trying to
what a
get that
throwback.
validation, that car
That
parking.
car park, man, caused grief
Yeah,
for
yeah.
everyone, even us
I'm
who
sure
worked
it
there.
did. Sure
Oh
it
boy.
did. But it's a great genre. I think what a privilege
Mm,
working with someone like Sean. It's just
yeah.
outrageous how lucky you get sometimes.
It's incredible, and it's I understand what you mean. It's like not trying to be like shoehorned into loving a genre and stuff. But horror for me is definitely one where I've always tried to convince non-horror lovers that you can have fun with this. Like, and
Oh
Dangerous Animals is a
yeah.
perfect example. It is such a fun movie because of the characters that are involved and sort of this dark sense of humor in there as well. Was
Yeah.
there a film where, and maybe it was maybe through Sean's work, that you sort of then made that connection of yes, this is twisted, but there is this element of entertainment to it that is validated for fun, I guess.
I think that's a really interesting question, mate. Like, I often think back to movies like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, for
Oh, yeah,
example. And,
totally.
when you're kind of watching these films and you're like, you don't know what to feel. Like, I think a good horror film kind of like, it's a combination of like, it gives you enough clues so that you know what's going to happen. Because
Yeah.
sometimes scary knowing that you're going to get the scare.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
totally.
just as much as it is getting it like, kind of out of the blue.
And doing
So
it in like a communal,
yeah,
in a theater, right?
yeah.
And that
And it
experience.
is very much a cinematic experience that you want to
Totally.
experience horror. And I think that's what would be so good about this film is I feel like if people are going into the theaters, that's the way to see it because you're right, that genre, it is a shared experience. You know what I mean? Like fear is one that you want people around you. Like it's
I
not a
love it.
film you want to be watching alone, late at night. I don't know. Some people might be into
Some
that,
people
but
might, yeah.
I certainly I'd want a couple of support people, I think. But
Yeah, I'm not chucking Hereditary on by myself at 1 in the morning, that's for sure.
Oh, 100%. But I think the genre itself, like,
Yeah.
I think for me, in terms of specific movies, I'd probably say, I don't know, it's hard. It's a really
Mm.
hard one. I even look back to like, I know they're doing a remake at the moment, but like I remember what you did last summer.
Oh, yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah, or I know what you did last summer.
Those
Like,
fun slasher, like
yeah,
sleepover
like
slasher movies,
slasher.
right? Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, I kind of, there's always a comedic element. There's always kind of like, I think you need that because without
Totally.
it, like, it just becomes a little bit too real.
Yeah, no, it's a fair
Yeah,
point. It's a fair point. And Dangerous
yeah,
Animals is full of it as well. Like the
yeah,
dark comedy in this is wildly good.
yeah.
And as you can tell, like we briefly mentioned, love physical media.
Mate,
I'm a big fan of I worked at a Blockbuster as well as a cinema, so like this
yeah.
love for movies there. And in a weird sort of
Mate,
twisted
you're a
connection,
cinephile. You're a
dude.
cinephile through and through.
Oh man,
And
I just love
a
watching
rare
movies,
breed.
man. It's
Yeah, that's cool.
um thank you, man. And in a sort of like a weird twist or like a reach for it, Tucker is kind of a collector of media as well in his own sort of fucked up way, I guess technically
He
as
is.
well.
He's kind of running his own blockbuster, but it's out in the water.
Yeah,
You know
out
what
in
I
the
mean?
water and there's one
Yeah.
customer,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
you wouldn't want to be the person who takes their DVD back late to Tucker. You're like,
Yeah, the
like, but
late
yeah,
fee is death. Yeah.
that is a really interesting point you do make, though. He is very much a collector
Well, he
of
has an affinity
things.
for it too, as well,
Yeah,
right? Like it's a nostalgia thing for him.
I
Yeah.
think the big thing is like, and I think it's the same with film, mate. We capture these things because we want to be able to like infinitely view them, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
and because it's something that can deliver not just one moment of feeling, but like
Mm.
an infinite moment of feeling if you so choose to watch it again in the future. So for him, yeah, that's it's definitely an interesting angle on that. I don't know. You'd probably have to ask Jai and Sean if they delved into that a bit, but.
It'd be
Um,
interesting, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
it did make me curious. Are you, and maybe not movies and DVDs and stuff, but is there something that is valuable to you that you're a collector of that you sort of are fond of?
It's interesting, mate. Like I was massive minimalist. I
Yeah,
lived
yeah.
in Bangkok for a period of time after I
Oh,
finished like
yeah.
I studied law and accounting and I did like this new Colombo plan scholarship through DFAT when
Right.
Julie Bishop was the foreign minister. So like I
Yeah.
went to Thailand, I worked in fashion in startups and I saw the landfill and that. So I went through a period when I came home and I was transitioning, wanting to get into acting. And I just got rid of everything, man. I had a period of time, my first year at acting school, I had two pairs of shirts and I had a pair of jeans and one kind of like fitness runner type
Yeah,
short.
yeah.
I had one pair of shoes. Like I
Wow.
fit everything I own into a backpack. So like I think prior to that, I did collect things, but then I kind of went away from it. But now, and it's gonna sound super lame, but I feel like
Talking to the
the
guy with
thing
this
like
background.
yeah, yeah.
It's
Oh
not
man,
lame, dude.
I don't even know what's in my background. I'm in my buddy Wilso's apartment with his lovely girlfriend Thea that just dropped me back from Sydney. So
Oh,
yeah, 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 I'm not
nice.
even sure what's in my background, but I think yeah, for me, like now I kind of just I try and collect like real moments that I experience, like
Yeah.
or like different stories. Like I hold value in that, or even like sayings and stuff like that. I always think about things that like my granddad said or like my granny said, like, and I don't know, I try and collect that stuff. I think the thing that is most important to me in terms of like capturing, collecting things is up here.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I try not to get too focused on like on things, but my
Sure.
partner, she's very kind of like, she keeps things and she kind of makes up for it
It's sort
for
of
me.
like the material sentimentality, whereas yours is
Yeah,
this
yeah.
emotional like
I wish
sentimentality,
I
right?
had more material sense, like sentimentality, as you
Hey,
said.
Dude, as a guy moving house, I wish I was in your position right now.
Yeah, I like to. I think a balance is a good thing, man. I think a
I
balance.
think
Yeah.
so. I think so. Well, thank you for sharing that, man. I really appreciate that.
All right.
I've really appreciate like love talking to you. This has been a really great
Yeah,
conversation.
likewise. Yeah.
And hopefully it's not the last. You mentioned you sometimes watch certain genres or certain things depending on what you're doing. What are you kind of watching at the moment if you're
Mate,
able to talk about?
I'm watching a lot of military marine based
Oh,
content at the moment. So we had
okay.
a recent I did an audition for Queensland Theatre. I don't know if you watch much theatre, but
Yeah, yeah,
there's
yeah.
a Few Good Men by Aaron Sorkin. So
You're kidding. Oh,
I've
dude.
tried to not like watch. I've obviously seen snippets of the film. Like you can't
Sure.
handle the truth. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah. Iconic.
But
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I haven't watched that film, but I've been watching stuff around it. There's a few auditions going at the moment in TV and film for marine based stuff. So I'm just trying to get a sense of that
Yeah, yeah.
at the moment and trying to really like engross myself in what it's like to be a marine and how it's depicted in popular media through films, any kind of YouTube videos I can find.
That's awesome, dude. I'm a fan of the like A Few Good Men is I only showed that to my partner like last year. She was the first
Oh
time for her
wow.
watching it,
Yeah.
and I hadn't seen
What
it
a
in probably
pleasure.
like 10 years. Oh, such a good movie. So well, yeah, keep us updated on that for
Well,
sure.
have you ever read the play?
No, I haven't, and I know I should.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you should read the play. Like I
Okay.
think I find the source of anything is always good. You know, they always talk
Mm.
about Shakespeare, and it's like you got the source
Yep.
folios, and then you
Yep.
people over time the iterations change. But if you go back to the source print of the play for that, I think you'll really enjoy it because you'll find new things in it that weren't necessarily depicted in the film.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a really like, I think it's probably one of the most well-written pieces of work that
Yeah.
I've ever come across. So
That's when you get Aaron Sorkin, man. That's what you get, right? That's
yeah,
that's
exactly.
unreal. Oh,
100%.
dude. Like, thank you so much for your time, Liam. I
No,
really
thank
appreciate it,
you.
man.
And
No,
like
no,
I
I
said,
appreciate it.